Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about how video editors might use Photoshop to do some basic video work. So what I'm going to do here is I have a couple video samples I want to work with. So I'm just going to start a new file, okay, and we'll make that be, I don't know, let's do 400, let's do 600 by 400, okay, like so. And I'm going to create two new layers. I'm going to bring in a video layer, new video layer from a file. And let's see, I have one. It's going to browse to open this fire example that we saw before. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say new, let's see, video layer from a file. And I'll bring in another one that I have here called smoke, right? So now you'll see I have two videos. I want to kind of demonstrate how we can use the video timeline here. So I'm going to go under my view menu and I'm going to bring up the timeline. Okay, and you'll see, unlike in the previous exercise, we have different timeline here. You'll see we have this video and we have this video right here, and it's a little different from the previous timeline we looked at, which is more frame based. This is more video layer based. Okay, so what I'd like to do here is I'd like to demonstrate how we can actually do some basic trimming and cutting. So you'll see here on this video, I'm going to just turn that off really quick, and you'll see if I take my timeline and just scrub it, you'll kind of see that's where the video happens, and that's kind of where it ends. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to bring this in, and I'm going to nip it there. And you can take, that's a great thing about Photoshop, you can take any of the ends of your video timeline, and you can easily kind of bring them in. Right, so maybe it's something along those lines. I can maybe bring that in a little bit more like so. Right, and then we could take it and snap it back. You could also do some expansion, not a lot, okay? But what I can do is you'll see every video has this little arrow right here, and it has a duration. Okay, what I can do is I can make this be, that's the maximum, that would be the minimum. You see, I can't really add more to the video, but what I could do, okay, and that's what we'll do here, is I could take this video and I could say edit, right click it here, and maybe even bring it in another time, right? So what I'll do is I'll duplicate this. Let me pull this out so you can see that. Right, I'll go here and I'll duplicate my layer. Right, so now I'm going to have a second one, and then I'll just repeat it. Right, put it right next door, and then I'll do the same thing again, duplicate layer. Sorry about that. Right, and you'll see there's my other one. Right, and then maybe I could just bring this down a little bit to the end so it's even. My goal is to make both of the timelines, okay, have the same sort of setup. Now the way what happens is that when you have multiple videos like this on one particular timeline, it creates a video group. So now you'll see essentially I can control that by the group, or I can control each of the individuals, right? So there's the whole group, it's gone, right? So now that we have that in place, what I'd like to do is I'd like to actually talk a little bit more about how we can do some basic effects on this. Now, if you turn down any one of these groups here, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the group, right, these are all turned on, right, but I'm going to say let's go to the group, and you'll see how when you turn down this little triangle you get some options, okay? So if we look at this here, you'll see that we have those same options that we had when we did the frame-based animation. You have the position, the opacity, and the style, right? Now the way this works is if I go to any one of these and I click, it lays down what's called a keyframe, right? And then what I'm going to do is under that style option here, okay, I'm going to make my opacity on that layer group be 0, right? So I'll go and put my opacity down to 0 here, right? And then at the end of this, what I'll do is I'll go back and I will say let's make my opacity now all the way up to the top, right? So now you'll see, now basically the way this is going to work, let me see if I can kind of do this, right? So now if I do back here, and if I go down, let's see if I can select all three of these, right? So we'll go down here and we'll say let's do opacity, right, and we'll make our opacity be, right, we'll make that 100%, and then right here we'll make our opacity be 0. Okay. Right. Actually, I just did it opposite. All right, so let's see if I can do that. Is now 100. Right. So now if I go from here to here, you see how I did it the opposite though, okay? See how it kind of disappears over time? Right? Okay. Alright, that's kind of what I wanted here. So that's what we'll do is I'm going to blow these guys away. Because the fact that I chained 3 together to match the duration is kind of causing me problems because each one's individual and I can't actually do the opacity on the group like that. So basically, I'm just going to do one, okay? So let's take that keyframe. We'll bring it back here, okay? And you'll see the way this goes. You'll see this now. So what I've done is that when the page first loads, you have this smoke, and then slowly the smoke fades out and you see the explosion. Right now, what I could do to compensate for the fact that it's a difference is I could say, let's do the speed slower. So we'll drop the speed down to 25%. Let me just put that in 25. Okay, so now if I play this, you'll see it's going to slowly fade out over time, and then that's going to be that. Okay, and so maybe let me pull this up a little bit more, and let's see if I can turn my audio track down. I don't know if you're hearing that or not, but I'm hearing it in my headphones. Okay, so that's working pretty well. That's kind of working the way I anticipated. Right now, the one thing I do want to do here is I want to take this, then I want to scale this, right? So if I go here, and you have this altered video section. Now here's the thing. Okay, if I go in here and I scale this, what's going to happen is I have to say Edit, Transform, and do a scale on it. And once I do that, it's going to convert the video into something called a smart object. Okay, so now if I convert that, and now I scale that up, right, and we'll kind of stretch it a little bit, like so. Okay. And press return, that's going to enter it. Okay, so now you'll see on the timeline, this is now an ordinary layer, right? But I can still see my effect in action. Right? So now what we've done is we've taken 2 videos and used an opacity tween on them with keyframes to actually superimpose the smoke over the top of this when it starts and then slowly fade it out. Now, let's suppose I wanted to salvage some of this. Maybe I could go here and have this start a little bit sooner, right, a little bit later, so I could move this down somewhat and maybe make the video not come in right away, right? So that would make this a little bit of a longer timeline, as you can see, okay? But basically, it's going to be the same idea, right? So let's kind of do a quick preview of that. Right, so there's the actual smoke. It looks like my when I did that, I kind of tweaked it off a bit. So let's just stop that really quick, and let's put that back on sync. Yeah. Okay. And maybe I don't want it to go down to 0. So what I could do here is, where's my layers palette? Layers. There we go. Right. So maybe what I can do is at the end of this keyframe. There's my keyframe right there. Right. Maybe not make it 0. Maybe make it like, right, because that makes it go to white, right? I don't really like that too much. So maybe not so much. Maybe drop it down to like 25 or something like that, okay? So now let's take a play at that. Okay, so the same kind of effects that you can do in Photoshop, okay? With the animation tweens, the position, the opacity, and the style, you could also do on video, okay? And using this ability to insert keyframes allows you to actually do a starting state and an ending state and change the value in between, okay? So you can kind of do all sorts of effects with this. It's actually pretty interesting. And you would export it the same way we talked about. You'd say File, Export, Render to Video, choose all your settings, and that would export, and you'd have a perfectly legitimate video effect. I find that people who work in video would like to use this because this is very reminiscent of a piece of software called After Effects. And I find that people like to play with that who use After Effects. If you're just doing something real basic, because then they don't have to go into After Effects and deal with all the After Effects functionality and all that stuff, especially if they're doing something really simple like this. And for those people who are Photoshop people, this is very powerful for them because they can kind of avoid having to learn a whole other piece of software just to do some simple video superimposing effects like this. Okay, thank you.